This is Christine Salvo with Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm your host today, Christine. I'm a therapist and certified mediator and certified hypnotherapist. My co-host today, Diane Hansen, is on location today in New Orleans. She's doing some consulting, so she won't be with us today. We have a wonderful guest today. His name is Michael Grecco. He is a celebrity photographer and TV personality. His clients include these crazy big names like Steven Spielberg, Patrick Dempsey, Will Smith, Johnny Depp, Robert Duvall, Martin Scorsese, Janet Jackson, Mel Brooks, Lucy Liu, Ben Stiller, Penelope Cruz, Morgan Freeman, Jet Li, Will Ferrell, Joaquin Phoenix, and many, many more. He's on the show with us today to tell us about plenty of tales of unexpected, awkward, and difficult situations that have popped up and how he has handled them. So thank you for joining us, Michael.
Christine, it's fabulous to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. So this is like this kind of grand introduction here.
Wow, I want to meet this guy.
Yeah, me too, right? So these are just names, right? People are people. I mean, I'm a therapist, so I met all sorts of people, and I just throughout every place I've been in the whole world, it's like people are people. But those are some big names, and so why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about what you do? How did you come in contact with all these people?
Well, I was always interested in photography. As a little kid, I loved the process of photography, darkroom and things like that. So I got into, this was obviously back when there was film and darkrooms and making prints, and I got into the process and photographing friends and making prints and doing things like that. And I went to college, and I thought, of course, as any 17 or 18-year-old did, that they knew everything. And there was a photojournalist course, and I knew nothing about photojournalism. So I was like, all right, because I know everything else about photography, because I'm so smart, I'm going to try this photojournalism course. And, I grew up in sort of a conservative, old-world Italian family. My mother was very protective. And it was doing photojournalism. I started interning right in my second semester after my photojournalism course, and started working in Boston and was shooting for the Associated Press, and up at the shooting the governor, Mike Dukakis at the time, and I promised I wouldn't date myself, but I think I did. So it was a way. It was interesting. It was a way for me to. It was a way for me to see the world and, really experience things and have an entry into things I never had. But ultimately and creatively, it wasn't very fulfilling. I wanted to be creative and create the photography that I wanted to photograph, not document things going on.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. So for a know-it-all, you actually had a few things you needed to learn still, huh?
Well, it just wasn't satisfying. It's like I wanted things to happen. I envisioned what should happen, or how the picture should be set up, or in the perfect world it would look like this, and it wasn't very satisfying. So that's how we sort of get to the crafted lighting and the set building and things like that, because I have these ideas in my head. The piece I didn't describe is before college, I studied art, and I studied art with, a very good high school art teacher, and then I took college courses in photography, and I studied photography with more artful photographers, and that sort of triggered sort of idea of storytelling that's not the photojournalist or newspaper type of storytelling.
Yeah.
At a newspaper, it's very literal, right? It's very like you stand someone in front of their store and with a, Joe of Joe's Shoes, he's holding a shoe and he has a sign that says Joe's Shoes.
I think of Spider-Man. He's got to go capture these. He has to capture, these shots of himself and then sell them to the newspaper. So. There's a little bit of the story of having to take these pictures, hoping that a newspaper will pick them up. Even right there's some element of somebody has to like these photos I took.
Right, exactly. But for me, I sort of liked the more creative part of it. Like I wanted to build a shoe and put Joe in a shoe and have him peeking out of the shoe, and it really became more going from newspaper photography to magazine photography. Really, that's like the easiest way to describe it. Yeah, the simplicity of daily newspaper photography to sort of the more sophistication and more lyrical and expressive nature of magazine photography.
Now, is this a difficult field to enter?
Yeah, it got progressively more and more difficult as time went on. I mean, if you think about it, and as we talk about this and we talk about and relate this to business, it's classic market conditions we're talking about here, right? So when I started at the newspaper, the old geezers at the newspaper would talk about the days when they had 4x5 cameras, which was a 4x5 piece of sheet film.
Okay.
And they'd have to focus the camera and guess how far the person was away from them. And there was a flash bulb in the camera. And there was two sheets of film, one on one side, one on the other, and they'd have to take a picture, wet their fingers, pull the hot flash bulb out, put a new flash bulb in, put the dark slide into the film, flip the film around, pull the dark slide out again, shoot the next picture, and that's how you did photography.
Wow. That is such a process. Oh, my gosh.
So when I got there, we had 35-millimeter cameras, but they weren't auto exposure and autofocus.
Okay.
You had to load film. You had to know how to expose it. You had to, you had to use a light meter and know how to, And as the technology has progressed, the barrier to entry has dropped.
Got it. Right.
And if you think about that, now the camera does everything. And if you screw it up, you can fix it in Photoshop. So the barrier of entry is gone. So, and the barrier of entry is gone at the same time that the outlets that would pay for photography are disappearing. If you immortalized a photograph in print for a month in Vanity Fair, it had to look good. They'd spend $150,000 on a shoot with Annie Leibovitz for 8 pictures.
Right.
Using something for 10 minutes on social media or for 3 days that's ephemeral, that they can switch out, or no one wants to pay for anything anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Right. So you have classic market conditions. You have a glut of supply, and you have a lack of demand, a lack of quality demand where you could make a living. And
that was where I was going to go right away,
a good
which was like the quality. So just because everyone can do it, and meaning technology is available, does everyone really have the gift? Does everyone really have the eye? Is it really in everyone, in their heart, the same way I'm hearing it was in yours? The way you're describing this to me, I can feel the passion in your voice, the journey that you've been on I just wanted to be a photographer. And I have this question, and gets off the business a tiny bit, but was this supported by your family? You kind of made sure to say, like, I have this Italian mother that's real strict, and I'm kind of getting this picture.
I wanted to buy a $100 camera at 13, and I had a fight for that camera. And
tell me about that fight. What did you have to do for it?
Well, I just had to beg and borrow and steal and earn my own money and beg. And then, of course, when they'd see stuff in print and if there was a clip on the news and, I had shot something that made the news, then they were so proud of me, but it was definitely not their career choice.
Well, I got to know, like, what was the career path if your family was like, Michael, this is what you're going to do?
Lawyer or doctor. And I had a 90-something-year-old great-grandmother that didn't speak English. She was right off the boat from Italy.
I love it.
And she would grab my cheek and go, "Ooh, Mikey, ooh, doctor, ooh," and she'd squeeze it and twist it. And I was a kid, and I was like, "All right, Graham, I got it."
So we can definitely talk about the weight of the world and family expectation, and then, your call and desire to be an artist.
Well, it's interesting because at this point, like, I just sort of approach the world as everything you do is creative. How you live your life, how you do manage your relationships, who your friends are, like how you conduct business. It's all creative. It's all, when you enter the commercial world of photography, and almost every realm, even if you're a fine art photographer, there's some commercial aspect to it, because you have to get a gallery to accept it.
Sure.
You have to do something that people want to buy. You have to market yourself to galleries. You then have to market yourself. Even fine art has a commercial aspect to it. So it's all problem solving, right? Life is problem solving.
Life is problem solving, absolutely.
And if life is problem solving, like I've embraced the business aspect of it, I've embraced creating businesses, like it's, learning from the mistakes of bad businesses, and not being afraid to create new businesses. I've got 3 or 4 different businesses and different projects within those businesses, and I look at it as all creative.
I can so relate to that. I absolutely agree with you on that. And what a beautiful way to look at life. What a absolutely beautiful way to look at life. Has it always been this way for you? Was there ever a time where, maybe you were a little not so, the world is this beautiful creative mystery for me to unfold? Or have you kind of always just been that way?
No, I think earlier on I was more resistant to change. Like if it worked, I wouldn't fix it. Until I was a little slower to change. But then, the market conditions in our industry as individual photographers and directors have just become so adverse. If you don't do things like create your own projects as opposed to waiting for someone to call you, you're going to fail.
Ooh,
and if you don't figure out how to make revenue and do things like that, you're going to fail. So you just sort of have to, for me, I had to do it, and this from a therapist standpoint, that the more you have success trying things and having them work, the more you feel free to do it, and to build your self-esteem. It works that muscle and builds your self-esteem in that area.
Mm-hmm. But you had to start somewhere. Was there ever a time where it didn't work?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
well, tell me about it. What happened?
Yeah, my third book, like from a business standpoint, I raised money and we printed too many books, and I definitely have. There were moves that weren't right. There were lots of little moves that weren't right. Like you couldn't read the title on the spine, so on the bookshelf you couldn't see it, and we printed too many books, and we spent our marketing money in the wrong places, and I can add it up. We're more strategic, and we're just more researched, and we're more
Well, yeah.
And then the other thing is OPM. OPM is very important.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with you.
You know what OPM is?
Yeah.
You do?
I think I do. What's OPM?
OPM?
You tell me
OPM? Other people's money.
Other people's money, okay. Yeah, right. I was thinking like operations management, but okay, other people's money.
No. When you're starting a business, if you have the creative idea and you're going to be working at it, don't use your own money. Other people's money.
Ooh, that's a great strategy.
I used my own money, which was a mistake.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, there were other people's money in it too, and the business failed, and I feel bad about it. I had one investor. Go, "Oh my God, I invested, $20, and that's but I got a tax write-off for like $10,000, and I'm like, yeah, dude, that's because I spent too much of my own money."
I love it. So for our listeners, this is a business therapy program, and we're really kind of talking to, work is life. Life is work. It's all kind of the same. It's just how we spend our time and where. And talking about these kind of these pivots and these ideas of like spend other people's money first. That's insightful, really. You didn't get that offhand. You didn't just know that at first. So how did you figure all that out?
Um, you just go along, and it's like you just can't keep doing things the way you used to. And I think as you run a business and the business is successful, you have two goals, of course, right? You have the goal of cutting your expenses, and you have to analyze what it's going to be to cut your expenses, and you have the goal of keeping your revenue up and increasing it. So those are the two things, that if you constantly do that in a business, your business should survive. But you have to be just very aware of market conditions, that you're not building a widget that's going to be, that's not going to be useful anymore, later down the line.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that. So I kind of want to talk about your work a little bit. I've been checking out your website, and your work is just beautiful. What would you say your style is?
I'm sort of the guy known for the dramatic portrait, always into lighting. The conceptual dramatic portrait, always, like idea-driven, story-driven, but like we talked about, more in that magazine lyrical style. That newspaper training gave me the background of storytelling, and I incorporated that into my world of magazine photography.
Yeah, so where would we find some of your work? Where have you?
Well, you can go to my website, which is michaelgrecco.com. That's MichaelGrecco.com. First name, last name, and it's all there.
What's your favorite? What's the must see? So if somebody's gonna check out this website, what do they have to see? What are you most proud of?
I love either like the Will Smith. I did the Sports Illustrated cover of Will Smith a couple of years ago when he did Concussion, and I love the Will Smith portrait there. But I love shooting comics also. We're about to put up a new website, and there'll be some pictures of Will Ferrell there that I love. And
I did see one of him like licking an ice skate.
Yeah, that's it. For Blades of Glory.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
I sort of like have a dark little bit of twisted, like a dramatic lighting with a little bit of twisted sense of humor.
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, like that is excellent. So you're doing all of this work. You've been doing it for how long now?
I can't tell you that. I'd have to kill you.
So you're brand new at this. You just happen to be excellent. Lucky you. You're just one of those people, I guess. I love what you're doing here. It's beautiful. Your work is really beautiful. And
but I can say this: it's over 30 years.
Over 30 years. Okay, so
over 30 years.
That's amazing. So, like you did say the journey of the dark room to the digital camera, which I'm guessing in photography years would kind of tell the story.
Yeah, I started in summer camp with the darkroom at 13.
So I remember using the darkroom in high school, and I thought it was the coolest place on earth.
Right?
It was the coolest place on earth, and doing the soaks, and I don't know if this would make sense to you, but you had to like put the film in this silver container and then like shake it forever, and
well, you don't want to over agitate it because you'll get edge burn. But yes, that's true.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I was any good at it. I just remember, having these tests.
You gently turn it up and down, because if you shake it a lot, you get agitation. You get developer agitation on the edges of the film. But
okay.
Yes, I.
Okay, if my high school teacher is listening right now, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but you probably gave us poor direction. So I just remember rattling that thing, and then taking it out and developing or putting it under these. It looks like a microscope, and making the size and taking the picture, and it was serene,
magic, right?
And it was quiet, and it was beautiful, and I remember just like being so surprised by what came out after. So I love when when an artistic person can be successful in business. You know, I don't know if you ever heard this growing up. I absolutely did. Artists can't make a living. So for the people kind of out there that their heart just calls, right? Whether it's photography or paint or any kind of medium that's artistic, what kind of advice after 30 years in the business and everything that you've experienced, what would you tell them?
Perseverance. Like, it's like if the thing about being an artist is many of us wouldn't know what else to do. Now, I mean, I've developed a couple of successful other businesses. I have a copyright defense business for photographers. I'm working on a book of my punk and post-punk and new wave music photography with Abrams. I'm working on potentially a television music series, docuseries, but it's perseverance. It's like nothing happens easily, especially, if you go on a path of being a lawyer or a doctor or dentist, or what's going to happen. You still have to work hard. But in artists, it's like stacked against you because, the market's glutted and the barrier to entry is low, and the market, the market demand is low. So you just have to persevere and keep working at it. It's like you have to figure out that, you have to want it bad. Mm-hmm. That's the best way to put it. You just have to really want it bad.
I got out of that to diversify.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, especially now in photography.
Yeah.
Especially now in photography. I think you have to. Originally photographers would start to direct, and now as many photographers see a lot of their market share dry up, they've, developed a fine art career. And I've diversified in a broader sense, but yes, diversification is definitely helpful.
So diversify, persevere, and follow your heart.
Yeah.
Don't give up. If this is the only thing that you feel that you can do it. Go for it and be creative. Try the different way.
Yep, that's right.
I like the quote that says, "There's not a lot of traffic at the top." So much of that saturation that you're talking about is kind of like, you like it, but maybe you're not crazy about it. And then the middle is like, yeah, I like this a lot. But the top is like, I live, breathe, eat it. There's nothing else I could do.
Yeah, and, in this creative field, the world of, visual artists and for photographers and directors, and, it's much of what we see in our culture and world that there's no more middle class. That's really what's happened. The top has gotten smaller and smaller, and they're probably not as wealthy as they used to be, but there's a big lower class, and the middle class is dried up, so you really, not only do you have to want it bad, you have to figure out ways of surviving.
Yeah, right. You have to compensate.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful having you on the show, Michael Grecco. I loved having this conversation. I'm really enjoying looking at your work, and I'm going to continue when we're.
Well, I thank your wonderful listeners. Hopefully they've enjoyed the show themselves, and they're able to check out the website and Will Ferrell licking nice. we filed the edge down, so I wasn't in the Hollywood Reporter the next day.
Oh yeah,
he put 16 stitches in Will Ferrell's tongue.
He's on my laptop right now, staring at me, licking this bladed ice skate with the most intense look on his face, and I haven't stopped smiling. So everything's like, wow, that's beautiful, that's captivating, and it's like huge smile, hilarious. I love it. So take care out there. I'll be following your work, and thanks for the conversation today. That was Christine with Business Therapy, and Michael Grecco as our guest. I hope you have a wonderful day today. Thank you.
Take care all.
Bye-bye.